This is News Talk 95.1 FM, 790 AM KFYO, and I'm Matt Martin. We have Dave on the line, but we also have, so we're going to go directly to the phones, we have Congressman Arrington. Congressman, how are you today?
Good morning, guys. I'm doing well. Hope everybody is safe and healthy back, especially in the studio. Thanks for practicing good social distancing. I hear Dave is on this call and doing the show remotely.
Yes, he's doing it from his home, and honestly, everything's worked out pretty well. So
yeah, we're distancing. We're doing what is demanded.
I'm pretty sure he just doesn't like me, but that's okay.
Well,
I'm pretty sure
he's
been looking for this excuse to get out of that studio with you for a long time.
yeah. So, Congressman Arrington, a lot of things are going on right now. One of the big things is that y'all have gotten done with the Phase 3 bill. Nancy Pelosi smoking something over on the side that's making her go crazy, and y'all are looking at doing a Phase 4 bill. How's that going?
Well, I'm not interested in a Phase 4, to be frank. I think we did what we had to do to get resources much needed to families, to small businesses, to frontline healthcare workers in Phase 3. We're not even halfway through spending that money. We have gotten $100 billion of the $350 in the SBA bridge loan program. We're not even halfway through distributing the monies to the healthcare workers and the infrastructure there. So, of course they're talking about spending more money. That's what they do. But until we spend this and that we see that it's being responsibly spent, and until we know how it's impacting and meeting the desired outcome, I'm not interested in it. I do think we will need more resources on the SBA bridge loan program for small businesses to survive and to keep continuity of employment. I think that is priority number one. And if we need to shore up unemployment insurance on account of people, the 10 million new folks on the unemployment rolls, then I think that's the responsible thing too. But again, as needed, but not this far out, and when you haven't spent even half of the money that we put in Phase 3.
So let me ask you this. I think they said that the first checks, the very earliest they would be going out is today. I saw a lot of reports that were saying maybe the 15th to 17th. I mean, how long is it going to be before we know whether this is enough?
I'm sorry, Matt. I lost you there.
That's
Give
all
me
right.
one more.
I said that the stimulus hasn't even gone out yet. It'll be going out sometime in the next week or so. How long after that do you think we'll see if this stimulus is enough to get the economy back on track?
Well, I never believed that what we were doing was stimulus. I know some people talk about it like that. I think it was disaster relief, temporary assistance to give these companies and these employers the lifeblood of cash flow that they needed to meet payroll and pay the bills and get through these troubled times that they didn't ask for, and that they certainly couldn't control, and decisions that were made by government officials to lock down the economy. So I think that we need to begin phasing in the near term the recovery. We need to move beyond as soon as responsible and as soon as possible, move beyond the emergency response and relief to phasing in the recovery and rehabilitation of the economy. The best thing we can do for that is to thoughtfully and strategically but intentionally getting people back into the marketplace, getting businesses back online, and getting this economy running again.
So,
yeah. Congressman, this is something that just amazes me. There is a move afoot by some on the left that we should keep this economy and keep everyone locked down for 18 months until they find a way to
vaccination
inoculate everyone against it.
Yes.
I cannot imagine and I'd like to know your thoughts. If we don't get this economy back up and going, I just can't imagine what it's going to look like. What are people going to use to buy groceries and gasoline for their car to go to the grocery store if nobody is working?
Well, as they say, the cure might be worse than the disease if we do something that outrageous and irresponsible. We've got to find a way to manage this at the individual, community level, all the way up to the federal government's advice. And we can't be at 100% risk or zero risk posture. That just is not realistic, and it will destroy the economy, and it will create greater pain and greater fallout and hurt more people than what we're seeing even today. So we've got to start walking this back in terms of getting back to normal. Because we didn't have the critical supplies of testing and PPEs and protective gear and ventilators and the like, we've had to take extreme measures. We've got to recalibrate or restructure our supply chain. We've got to do some things in this interim before we get to the fall so that we're in a much better position and that we don't have to go into this shutdown mode, because if we had to do that again in a resurgence in the fall, I think it would be devastating, and we would be talking about depression-like economic conditions.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
are you in favor of opening this economy back up May 1st and getting people back to work?
Well, listen. I do think we should let the science, data, circumstances obviously determine what we do. But yes, I'm in favor of beginning to phase in the recovery of our economy as we move down from the peak of this virus and our emergency response. And it looks like the models are saying we could hit our peak as early as this weekend. So it looks like we're managing through this and on out, but we can't just wait until it's gone entirely before we turn the economy on. So yes, I'm in favor of phasing that in and doing it in a thoughtful way. Look, we should consider the people that have underlying conditions, the most vulnerable. They should be treated differently. That's just smart. We should consider geography and where this has spread and where we have hot spots and where we don't. I mean, we just have to use some common sense, and we can be responsible, but we can phase in the economy and manage the second phase of the disaster, which will not be health and safety directly, but it will be an economy that is just stuck with millions of people on unemployment, and again, a potential situation that's more disastrous than the emergency response phase.
So, Congressman, one of the things right now, the World Health Organization, apparently we're finding out that they've been covering up for China and how bad this really was. I know that originally I thought that this was way overblown because the numbers coming out of China just didn't seem nearly as bad, but it looks like the World Health Organization has been covering for that. What are the next steps with the World Health Organization and trying to get them? Is there anything we can trust about that?
Well, we have to investigate thoroughly and hold China and the WHO accountable for their lackadaisical, at best, response and at worst, cover-up. And I know we've got a cover-up situation in China, and we should expect that from the communist regime. But what we've seen at a WHO is a situation where we're paying the freight, carrying the water like we've done for the UN and NATO and others, and we've got to rethink how we support these organizations, the leadership of these organizations, and the current director has a spotty past anyway, and it looks like he was sort of colluding with China to try to make things seem better than they were and giving China more credit for their response than they deserved. So I don't think we can get our eyes off the ball right now, which is moving through this response and relief on into recovery. But as soon as we start to recover and recuperate, we need to go strong after both WHO and China.
Okay. Congressman, we do have to take a quick break. When we come back, I do want to ask you about diversifying away from China because it seems like us being too connected to China and Chinese goods has actually hurt us a lot right now. So let's go ahead and take that break. We'll be right back. This is the morning show on KFYO. We're going to get right to the phones with Congressman Arrington. Congressman Arrington, as I was kind of mentioning before, with medications even and some of the other stuff that were hard to get out of China because we were too dependent on China, is there anything right now that Donald Trump or Congress is looking at to change our dependence on China?
Yeah, this supply chain system that we have has been built over years, if not decades. We are way too dependent on China and other sole source providers for things that are important to our national security and public safety, as we've seen with medicine and other medical supplies, including protective equipment that we desperately needed at the outset of this pandemic. And so we have to the bottom line is we cannot depend on other countries. We have to maintain the capacity to make certain products. That's why we have a food supply system in this country. That's why we have farm bills so that we don't outsource feeding our people. It's why we have and maintain the greatest energy supply in the world, which is suffering greatly because of a price war as much as a pandemic. But we want to maintain energy independence and don't want to rely on Russia or other countries for our energy needs. So, yes, whether it's strategic metals to make war machines or it's food for the basic needs of our people or medicine, we have to restructure that supply chain. We've got to bring things back home so that we maintain the capacity for some of these critical products.
So if now my question, like what they're talking about phase 4 money, would that money be better spent if we put it into, I guess, stimulating some of these industries that are going for the cheaper China goods, if they are willing to bring it back into the United States and build it here?
Well, let me just tell you, there are businesses that employ a lot of our people in West Texas and our fellow Americans across the country that are gasping for air right now on account of our shutdown. We need to make sure that those guys can stay afloat, get back on their feet. That's job one. So we can't the issue of supply chain restructuring, is a longer-term proposition. I had a conversation on a call with my Ways and Means Committee colleagues. We are the Committee of Jurisdiction for Trade. We're already engaging in the conversations. I think it's appropriate to lay the groundwork, but right now the resources need to go to getting us out of the response and relief and into recovery. And then I think this thing on supply chain that you mentioned is a longer-term proposition. So we're laying the groundwork for it, but no, we still need resources where we need them, not where we don't need them. And certainly the small businesses who employ the vast majority of our families in West Texas, they need that lifeline, and we've got to make sure we do that job first.
So are the Democrats talking about supply chain at all?
Yeah, there are plenty of Democrats that have applaud the president's efforts with tariffs to ensure that we can supply the strategic metals to the Defense Department and other critical infrastructure for this nation. The president's been talking about that since he took office. I think now we just have a heightened sense and awareness of our need to diversify, as you would say, not depend on countries like China for these things. But, yeah, I think there's bipartisan support for that. I know on my committee there are plenty of folks that applaud the president for what he's done with respect to China.
All right, Congressman, I apologize. We're out of time, but thank you for calling in.
You bet. Good to be with you guys. God bless.